To all of you again. This session we will more focus on how do we make threat modeling. Once we have some idea about our weakness, how do we now establish the security controls? To establish the security control, you have to have the understanding of what type of threats you want to monitor or you want to minimize, and accordingly you can do a threat modeling. And once you do the threat modeling, you can always try to identify which are the risk you want to minimize and take mitigation strategies also to manage the risk management. So we will go into understand very two common models, threat model models for doing the threat modeling. The number of threats are very high, so we may not be able to do so many instances. So I will take one or two examples how which are those models, and we will also see why it is important to do threat modeling, and also understand some of the security controls and risk management strategy. All these three aspects we will talk in this session now. Now, this is an important slide again, like what we showed in the earlier session, the landscape, which we call it as vulnerability threat landscape. Here, this is another important slide. If you are able to understand this, then you will be able to appreciate why the threat modeling is important, risk is important, risk mitigation strategy is important. Okay, so we will try to go into little more detail on this PPT. So what does this talk about? If you see here, there are various rectangles. One says as owner, and you have some relationship amongst all these rectangles. So these are nothing but different entities. So let us go and understand this concepts and relationship between the different components which are constituting your security framework. So to begin with, owner. Who is this owner? Owner can be an individual, or it can be an institute, or it can be an organization. Fine. So we will take this to begin with. As an individual, I am using a mobile, I am using a laptop, or I am using a server, client server, some kind of a system. So I am the owner. Or it can be a group of people who are working in the organization. So organization can also be an owner. Many of you are working in organization, so you can also look from the organizational point of view. Now, how do we establish and what are the different type of relationship? We'll go one by one. So as a owner, as an individual, I should be aware of the weaknesses in my system. So owner may be aware of vulnerabilities. If he is not aware of it, it is a challenge. But assume that he should be aware of, or he may be aware of the vulnerabilities. What are these vulnerabilities? They are nothing but the weakness in the system. Example, I have a mobile, but I am very lazy. So I will not create any password. So what is the weakness here? Not having a password to enter. Now I leave that mobile on a desk, some desk when I go to a hotel or when I go to a shopping mall. Somebody immediately can come and log on to your mobile. And once they come into your system, even within no second, they can install something and they can leave that mobile as it is and go away. So even if you think that nobody has seen my mobile, within 1 or 2 minutes, somebody would have already installed a software on your mobile. So as a owner, if I don't know that weakness, that means I don't have a password onto my mobile. I should not keep my mobile here and there. If I don't have that kind of understanding, then I'm really opening up the avenues for others to attack my system. So this is nothing but a vulnerability. When you have this vulnerability, weaknesses, naturally you have a risk. So the vulnerability also give rise to lot of risk. So if you have risk, so you are going to have lot of threats. Naturally, you will have problem. So this is where you have to be very careful. So a owner, if he doesn't have the understanding vulnerabilities, he is going to have a risk. Now, let us see how do we minimize the risk? How do we minimize the risk? So, owner or individual or an organization can always impose, introduce, or implement some of the countermeasures. What are those countermeasures? Which are resistance or which are resistant or which are going to minimize these weaknesses and no, also reduce the risk. So these countermeasures, they possess these vulnerabilities, and that may be no, used to do the risk reduction. Okay, so to reduce the risk, you may be using these countermeasures. So the countermeasures has a very important role to play. So they are nothing but your security controls, or they can have a other means to manage the risk, which are actually happening because of these vulnerabilities. So this is how you have to understand the various relationship between these components in this figure. Then you will be able to understand the whole framework of threat landscape or vulnerability landscape, or even risk strategies for your your systems. So who are these threat actors? Now assume that you have the vulnerabilities and which are also giving risk. Fine. So when you know this risk, then you are exposing the system or your mobile devices for the outsider to come and attack you and destroy your data, steal your data, or even do some kind of reputation threatening to your system or at the individual level. So these are the expected result when you have the weakness in the system. So who does that? They are nothing but threat actors. These are sitting outside your organization, or they can be inside the organization. So please do not assume that these people who are going to create these security challenges, they are attacking your system, have to be always outside and they are sitting outside the system. As I said, as an organization, you have many people who have just resigned and they are going away from the organization. They are also prone to hack your system. The reason is they are threatened by somebody to give away some information, or they by themselves motivated to steal some information because of various reasons. People they become distressed when they are asked to resign from the organization due to various challenges. Fine. So when he is going away from the organization, he has a very bad motivation, and he may take lot of processes, lot of documents, information from the organization. So he can be always from the within the organization. He is called as an insider threat actor. If someone who is doing from outside, they are called external threats. Now, what do? They create some actions. They are creating those actions which are called threats. That threats can be in different forms. It can be some email, fake email. It can be some attack, or it can be threatening on the SMS, or it can come as a deactivating some of your services on your laptop, or they can even stop the services of some softwares you are having financially running those applications. So they can do any kind of harm to system. It is not at in system level. As I said, because of social engineering today, even they are doing personal abuse, personal attack, personal reputation hijacking. So many such type of individual human level attacks, or at the system level, or it could be at the network level they are doing. So the intensity can be very high based on the kind of threat they are doing, kind of motivation they have. So these threats are doing what? They are actually attacking the digital assets. Finally, they are actually stealing your digital information, or they are still manipulating your digital data, or they are trying to deactivate some of the services. They are nothing but your digital assets, very important assets. Why they are attacking? Because these owners, they are valuing these assets. They are very valuable to the organization. valuable to the individual. I don't want to lose my mobile, isn't it? All of us have mobile. Do we simply leave the mobiles as it is whenever we want? We all the time keep our mobiles in our own pockets. Why? Because we value that mobile. We have lot of information we carry. Many mails we log in, and every day we keep using those mails to do our activities. Fine. So these assets, either it is a device or it is a digital format, or it can be physical format, whatever. So the form can be very different, but these assets are very important to us. Now these threat actors, they take certain actions, give rise to some actions, and those actions are nothing but they are turned into threats. That threats, they are attacking on these assets. Why they are attacking? Because they are the owners or the people who are having those those possessing those assets are valuing those assets. So this is very important phenomenon here. So we have to protect these assets. We have to identify these assets, and we have to build security framework for these assets. Once we build that, then the owner, even though he is aware of these vulnerabilities and he also knows that there are risks because of this weakness, he can always use some countermeasures that are reduced by that are applied to these risks to minimize those risks. So the countermeasures will definitely help, but the vulnerabilities will not help. So we have to understand the vulnerabilities, weaknesses of the system. Otherwise, our assets may be hacked by outsiders or insiders. So these actors, because of these acts. Now, because you have so many threats, so it increases your risk. So why the risk is very important? Because you have so many risks. Who are creating those risks? The actors who are there from outside or from inside the organization. If you do not have a threat, then there is no risk only, isn't it? So our idea is to minimize this risk. So even though you have weakness, no issues, but you develop countermeasures and you take a strategy to minimize this risk, then you are in a safe position. You are in a scenario where your systems are not threatened by other hackers. So you have a secured environment to protect your digital assets. So what we have to take away from this slide is that owner cannot avoid these threat actors because he may have some vulnerabilities in system. Now these threat actors are always watching that. How do they watch? Because they know these weaknesses are having risk. These risk he try to always exploit. So these actors, they use various kinds of threats to exploit the system because there are weaknesses. Weaknesses are nothing but they are actually the risk in the system this owner is taking. So they exploit that and those risks, and then they will spoil the system, deactivate the system, harm the system, or even bring down the reputation of the owner himself. So how do they do that? They attack these assets. So by doing this attack, they are creating higher risk, and also they are increasing the harmness to the system because of the vulnerabilities we have. So if we have countermeasures, security controls, we can address all these. Even though we know there are threats, we know there are threat actors, we know that our digital assets are at stake. Because of the countermeasures, we can do it. So what are we trying to say? We are trying to say that you should know how to manage your weaknesses by using these countermeasures. What are these countermeasures? They are nothing but your security controls, your security systems, your policies, your standards. That is where, as an organization, we go for ISO standards, we go for international standards. Individuals, working professionals who are working on security related jobs, they go for certified certification in the security aspects, because they are going to add value to the system, add value to the organization by trying to reduce this risk, by adopting various risk management strategies. So your countermeasures are nothing but security controls. They are nothing but various tools and techniques to identify and minimize the risk happening in the because of the vulnerabilities. So we also assume here is that no system, no individual can be 100% free from this weaknesses, these vulnerabilities. So rather than saying that I am going to remove all the weaknesses, I always say that I am aware of these vulnerabilities, but I'm going to have a better risk strategy, risk management strategy in my system, in my organization. Once I know that, automatically it will help me to minimize the challenges which are related to the security happening. So that is how an organization has to look into the various security practices and try to find out the gaps in the security practices, adopt various standards, adopt various processes, policies at the individual level, at the process level, and at the organization level, so that there is a minimal loss when it comes to the digital asset properties or digital assets values. Okay, so we as an organization, I have some experience where we have gone to many such certification processes, ISO 27000 or COBIT certification. All these assessments will help us to identify the current existing practices and establish new practices in terms of security for processes, for policies, and those policies include the access management in terms of user who can come into the organization, who has an access to the system, who has an access to modify, delete certain documents in the organization, and how many users can use a different type of servers, different type of they can enter into project, they can work with clients. So you have different type of user management policies, administration policies, then project related policies, then network related policies. If you go to any organization, you may have to use identity card. Now these identity cards will not allow you to go across the organization. Certain wings, certain departments you may not be allowed to go. What does that mean? That means they have established a security policy that not all users, not all employees can go into any department just like that. There are certain projects which are sponsored by customers. They do not want any employee of that institute to get into the project room of his own project. So there is an access limited. There is a restriction given to the employees to even enter into those areas of the project wings. So at the user level, there are certain policies, and same is the case when it comes to certain facilities like email. Not all users may have email facility to send email to the CEO, nor to the clients, nor to the other projects. So you have even restriction at the email level. So this is how we are trying to build policies in the organization to maintain or to establish better security environment. Same is the case for processes. We have various processes defined for administration departments, or the project departments, or the other type of departments who have only those processes they can use. Not everybody has the privilege to use certain processes in the organization. So like that, at the process level, at the department level, at the user level, at the organization level, at different vendors level, we have various security controls established. So that itself become a very huge document. So your company will have a policy called security policy. Now that security policy, CEO of the organization, he writes and he says what is security policy and how that is aligned to the business goals. See, whatever we are doing as a countermeasure, it is an investment to the organization. Now, organization, how will they gain profit out of this investment? Return on investment. So they have to align these countermeasures or security practices to the business goals. Once you have the alignment, then whatever investment is done to establish these security controls or security practices will give a return on investment in terms of avoiding this risk at the organization level, both for the customer and for all the organization. So it is very important that business goals should be aligned to the security framework, security policies. Otherwise, no organization will be able to sustain such type of security policies which are not aligned to the business goals. Now, same is the case at the individual. It is not only organization, as I said, even an individual level, you have to have a virus software, antivirus software implemented on your computer, or you have various other type of encryption method or digital signature or no password authentication method. You have to establish on all your devices. If you have an IoT devices you are working with in your smart home environment or smart office environment, again those IoT devices should be enabled with various user authentication policies and user access management policies to manage the security. So these countermeasures are developed, established at various levels and various processes and various policies to make sure that the whole organization takes the benefit and the risks are completely, they are very minimal. So now I hope that you have understood this very well. Reason is, no, as I said, today the organizations are attacked not just once, many threatening agents or threatening agencies. I would say these actors are not one or two. They are coming as a big organization support, and they are going to attack the organizations on a long duration. And we need to have a very clearly defined risk management strategy to address such challenges. So it's very important that we have to do. And some of the countries, they sponsor these type of activities in a big way just to bring down the reputation of other country colleagues or other country. They want to take as a almost like a small war, digital war against those companies in other countries, just to take the control on those countries. So we have to look at even at the national level, how do we save our digital assets, which are their mission critical applications or which are there in government's offices. Many of our confidential data, financial data, which are there in the government websites, they are nothing but the important assets we have. So if we do not keep track of that, we do not monitor the security of those assets, naturally the other countries who are there outside our nation, outside our state, they are monitoring and they are doing spying on those digital data, and they may hack and create a havoc to the nation level security. So it is everybody's responsibility to ensure that we do the vulnerability assessment, we identify the weakness, and we established various security controls to minimize most of the risk we are anticipating from such type of security. And there is no one-time measure, and these actors are always active on the net because of the technology. We are there, internet most of the time, 24/7. So unless we do that, we may not be able to reduce. So it is a continuous process. It is not a one-time instance. So it's not like, no, I'm having a chocolate, so I enjoyed it, I'm satisfied. No, it is not. You have to always chew this chocolate forever. That is what is the situation here now. So most of the big organization, it is a continuous investment. That is why if you go and look at organizations like Infosys, Wipro, or the top 15 companies, you have a big team working as an information security team. And there are people like information security head, information security manager, analyst, information security analyst, and there are many team members who are supporting various activities of security compliance through this security model implementation. So the assessment happens very regularly, and the compliance is established very frequently. Once in a year, the assessment happens from third party auditors, they are called security auditors. They come and look at these, this whole process, how the organization is establishing the digital assets, what are those digital assets, what are the weaknesses they have, and what are the risks they have, whether they have taken all the risk mitigation. If they are not, then what kind of threats it's going to impact the business. See, finally it is the business impact. Why we are doing all these for the organization, the risk management or the vulnerability assessment or security audits? Because it is a business impact. Our business do not want to go away, and we want to sustain our business. We want to grow in the competition market. We want to be always a competitive to our competitions in the market, and our business has to grow. So we have to monitor continuously these threats. So security audits happen very regularly. There are international level security organizations. They do audit and they provide the security certificate to the organization. So it is a very well structured processes in the organization, and anyone who is working in those organizations, they come to know how critical these practices implemented and how critical to comply to these processes. So every employee of the organization has to comply to the processes. He cannot, in my own organization, I cannot remember in 30 years of my working, I never went to an organization without an ID card. If I don't go with an ID card, then I'm not allowed inside. It is as simple as that. And there are situations I cannot go to and run any program without having the permission from a senior manager of that project. So there are certain privileges, even though you are part of the organization, you may not be availed because of the security limitations. So as an organization, it is very important activity, but however, it is at the individual level also, it is very important. So there are tools and means available today to establish this. Okay, I think you have got a very detailed understanding of this, whatever we talked about in the last session, and how do we address the various security controls, or what type of risk management strategy we can implement for the organization. So this is a little bit extension, as I know the same picture has been written very differently. So any owner or any company, he may possess, they may have lot of vulnerabilities. So it is not one vulnerability. There are chain of vulnerabilities, chain of countermeasures you have to build because of the intensity or capacity of the organization you have. And each company may be aware of these vulnerabilities, and they want to wish to minimize this risk. There are many risks which are there, and because they value their assets. So if I go, the company, it values these assets. There are so many digital assets they have. They value their these assets, and so they want to minimize the risk which are happening because of the threats. And they are already aware of these vulnerabilities, and they may possess lot of countermeasures to minimize or reduce the risks for these vulnerabilities. But at the same time, there are threat actors. They are called advanced. These are working with very highly skilled groups. So these threat actors, they work in a group. They work in an organization. They keep sending the threats, which are actually giving the risk to the organization. Now this can happen continuously, like a campaign. So that is why I wanted to say this is not a one-time activity. Some of the organizations are protesting as a campaign, and they are creating lot of scenarios, and the idea here is to either damage or abuse the organization as or an individual. So how do? They do with the threat. So this is what in nutshell the complete framework or the structure of the relationship between various components of the security concepts and relations of the components that they determine the risk. So now let us understand. Now we will go one by one and see how we can minimize. So let me just go about trying to understand what is an asset. So this asset is very important. As we said, it is a digital asset. Now they are assessed. We need to identify which assets are very important. The reason, to determine the impact from a compromise that affects the confidentiality, integrity, availability. These are three important components for any security. So we have to protect these in our digital assets. So that is why we have to do an assessment of our digital assets. Once we know the assessment results, we know where we are compromising. And when we are compromising, we also know what is the risk it is going to create. So this is an international organization standard, Federal Information Processing Standard, which provides a guidance on the how we can categorize various digital assets. So if you want to look into this, please look into this website, and you will come to know more details about how we can go into detail of understanding the assets. Why do we not need to understand the assets? Then only we will be able to know what assets are important, what assets are not important, how we can give more investment to manage the high priority assets for risk management. Okay, so that is why you need to understand the categorization of assets importantly. So what are the characteristics of these assets, or what constitutes these assets? So you see here, there are so many assets which are very valued and valuable to the organization. Servers, network components, user devices, organizational IT infrastructure, data centers, mobile devices like smartphones, tablets, because many CEOs, many managers, they don't use laptops. Maybe they are always on the travel, so they may use smartphones and tablets instead of desktop. So it is very important device for the organization. Storage media, people. Why people are important today? Social engineering is very, attacks happening on the social front is very crucial. They are using Facebook, they are using Twitters, they are using various social media platforms. So hackers are coming into those platforms to steal the information of human beings or the important professionals who are behind the organization. So people abuse can happen, threatening can happen for those people, and ransom amount calls can also go to these people. So they are very important. So we cannot neglect people today. And various design specifications, VPN configuration, critical information asset like property, intellectual property information, or the financial related to budget, related to various proposals. Many documents are very important for the organization. So all these are part of assets or intellectual property. Product development. Many manufacturing organization, their important asset is product development. So all the information related to developing those design documents, or some of the patents related to their products, or the processes, they're all very important information. So this is also a digital asset. Manufacturing process itself is a patented process. So again, the process is documented somewhere. So somebody can also steal that process itself. Business policies and emails, again, they are very important digital asset. So when you come across these asset, it is not just network, servers, or the user devices. See, if you see, there are so many samples I could find, and beyond that, this list is not exhausted. So you have many such digital assets which are very important for the individual, for the system, or for the organization. You take any example, your own example of any company you are working, or a institute you are working or studying. So there are many such things. Organizational chart. So the hierarchy of the organization, or user credentials, passwords of important people. Personal assistants. Again, PAs are very important human being today in the organization. Why? Because they keep lot of confidential data when it comes to decision making process of their own managers. So if somebody attacks the PA, so there is a high probability that information may get leaked, data may get leaked from the personal assistant. to the outside world, and those data can be used for any kind of manipulation. So personal assistants are very important. People working in media are very important. Of course, the managers of that. Now, all these constitute an asset, digital asset, or it can be a personal asset. Okay, and they are going to be used as no, if there is any weakness in any of these storage, any of the processing of these data, that becomes a vulnerability for the hackers to attack on the system. So how do we take care of, how do we do the vulnerability and then do the understand our own digital asset weaknesses? So the we go and then try to now look into how do we gather the threat actors and the threats which are there in the organization. They are going to create the harmful activities action on our digital asset. So there are two type of threats happening. Now, what are those threats? One is the internal sources. So far, we as a industry, as a society, we never gave more focus on the internal sources because there was a trust. If I am an employee of an organization, so my manager always trust me that I will not leak this information to outside. This was a more of a age-old traditional concept built in into most of the organization. So they never questioned the internal sources, internal person. But today that is going to be a very important concern. So while you are trying to identify the threat actors, you are also going to now identify various ways of collecting the data on the threats. So what are those sources of information you are collecting? So the sources are internal sources. You have so many logs. If you are running a social security infrastructure, security process, security organization, you have various tools and frameworks to capture these information on the various defects coming, various incidents happening in the security front. So those are captured through system logs. So what are those systems? Their systems are nothing but intrusion detection and prevention system. You have various software, they are helping you to capture those log data, which will provide you on what kind of threat is going to happen, what kind of threat. They may not reveal the threat actors, but it will give you the kind of alerts. It will give you the kind of messages to you that, see, there is a possibility of threat in this. So alerts, basically they are alerts. You can have firewalls, you can have data loss prevention system. So these are different ways or the sources by which you can collect the threat information. So this is more, we call it as a, today with analytics, you can even call it as a threat intelligence system. So when you build into analysis and you build into some kind of forecasting, it becomes a higher level of analysis. Otherwise, you use these available logs and try to capture. There are also some incidences happen regularly because of these tools. So those incident reports can also provide you the data. And of course, you have physical security. There are some security people who monitor the how people are entering, what kind of systems they use, what vendors are entering into the organization, what they are trying to do. So they also provide you on the data information from the physical security point of view. And there are many assessment reports which automatically happens because of the tools you have implemented, softwares. So those reports also provide you the data. So these are some internal sources you continuously monitor and keep collecting the data for identifying the threat. From the outside, there are external agencies, there are external organizations, individual experts, expertise. They will also provide the data. So you can have government intelligence sources or international government intelligence sources. You can always have a memorandum with them or tie up with them. They provide you this report. Or you can have some specific public site. They continuously monitor, like Gartner or Forrester. They provide you some of the threats. You can also get threat reports. You can always subscribe to such agencies and take the data regularly, frequently. Or you have certain discussion forums, community membership, by which also you will get the information. Or there are certain conferences, open discussion forums where you can collect these data on the trend happening on the security front, or the recent attacks happening, and what are the measures they have taken, other places, other locations. So you will collect the data from the external sources like that. There are third party vendors who also provide data and report information. Some of them are free, some of them are subscribed on based on the fees. So you have both internal and outside sources to continuously collect the information on the alerts or the threats which are going to create the risk in your system. So you have to monitor, collect and analyze it. Collection is just not it's not going to help you. You have to also understand these threats. Then accordingly you will come out with a strategy to minimize those threats. So the threat actors. Now, once you know the threats, what are the type of threats you are getting either from the internal sources and the outside, it is also important to understand who are the people who may create these kind of threats to you. So it's very crucial information. So threat actor classification. So once you know the threat, different type of threats, you also try to identify who are the people who are coming. So organizations are more concerned about malicious insiders. See, this is very important. So, so far the traditional model or the conservational model says that you only try to see the hackers or the threat actors only from the outside world. But this is no more a valid statement. So you have to always have a view of who are the people who are there inside the organization, what type of activities they are doing, whether they have access to every location, a very sensitive area. If they do not have the, if they have the access to all those areas, what type of activities they do. So this insider's view is also very important. So the threat actors are also classified as insiders and outsiders. Now, who are the outsiders? They are the regular criminals, cyber criminals, who are well professioned in this type of activities. Like thieves, or there are certain actors, they are sponsored by organizations or by government, or there are people who have the hobby to do this and then they also create this as a profession. There are certain system administrators who are very more expert on handling very complex systems, networks. They themselves can always steal this information or leak this information or breach the confidentiality, integrity and availability of the security aspects. So you should also be very watchful on what type of administrator you are recruiting, or what type of administrators available who is monitoring your systems. Then end users, executives, partners. So many of these people who are directly or indirectly working with you, you have to be very careful. At the end of the day, any type of system hacking can happen. If he is an executive and he has some vulnerabilities in his system, so the hackers can always enter through this executive. He becomes just a backdoor entry to the organization. So we should know what executives have, what type of permissions, what type of activities they are doing, whether it's all very sensitive activities, or they are administrative activities, or it is project related activities. Accordingly provide the security control or the countermeasures. So your actors can be either inside or it can be outside. And outside again, you have sophisticated actors, or also other type of actors. So what type of actions they can do? They can do malware. They can just bring in some softwares, which is a malicious software, script or code, and it can run on device. So these are various actions our threat actors are doing. So one is through software. Fine. So without even we knowing, software gets installed on our machine, and it can also start destroying many of our programs, files, and deactivate some of the services. Some examples are viruses, worms, spywares, keyloggers, backdoors, like that. Hacking is another form by which they attempt to intentionally access. So here they intentionally, their motivation is to come and access your machine, access your system and harm assets. What are those assets? They're all information assets without authorization. See, the beauty of this hacking process is they come to your access your digital asset without authorization. So they may not have the authorization, they do not know user password, they do not have any authentication, but they use different ways and means to log in through brute force or through your malware or through email, fake emails or through downloads. So different ways of getting access to your system. And also start doing harmful to your system. So what are those such type of attacks? Brute force attacks. They keep on trying various password combinations and sometime it will work and they get into the system. Or there is a code injection. If you have a very good database, they can always use SQL injection is a method. They write some code and they will log in into the database, and from there they will go to the system, OS operating system. They try to spoil it. Or they can also do some crypto analysis. Crypto analysis means they kind of doing some encryption, decryption, process. They try to do some analysis. They use some kind of different different way of breaking the encrypted code, and they try to either enter through network, middleman attack, or they come into the system directly through that. Or denial of service attacks. They also again use the method of denial of service to attack your system. So all these people are generally called as hacking. So that action is called hacking. Or social tactics. Again, they will ask you to, they become very close to you through Facebook or through Twitter. They keep sending you messages. Sometimes they even send you bouquets. They may send sweets. They may send some kind of getting trust. They may try to even invest money and they will provide you some good rewards. Without knowing all these back into bad intention, we may start believing them. So then they will they do this deception or manipulation or intimidation to exploit the weakness in the human beings. Or whatever the trust we have got, we may try to provide complete access to them. Now that is how many of the thefts happen. The thefts, when they happen, we come to know the thieves are nothing but known people only, either the vegetable vendors or the servant maids or very close people who are there. Now why does it happen? Because they use these social tactics. They first develop the trust and then they start getting into the hacking system. Or sometimes it is a misuse. So they may use some kind of policy violation, administrative abuse, or non-approved assets use of those. So they may misuse some of the facilities, some of the systems, some of the processes, even though they do not have the permission to use it. By misusing that, they may get an access and then they try to do the harmful. Some of the physical action, of course, they may come and attack physically. That is still possible. And that kind of theft is anyhow, it is a age-old fashion, age-old technology. They continue to use that. So they may not use any of this digital media or the digital platform. They may use a physical way of attacking the human. Some errors also may happen. They may do errors, and they may do through that errors. We are all human beings. We may do some errors. So using that errors also, they may enter into system. Environmental action. This is very important. No, many times we don't understand. So they try to now bring down the electricity. When they bring down the electricity, we think that there is no power. Then they may try to come and attack you, or they may try to remove some of the temperature and try to spoil the system. So they may intentionally remove the AC, or they may try to reduce the electricity. No, using these environmental factors, they try to harm your system. And once there is no AC, probably we may have to shut down. When we shut down the system, some of the activities may get deactivated, or they may completely remove the backup mechanism, or they completely remove the disaster mechanism we have in place. So these are different ways of affecting our environmental factors and trying to create harmful actions for these environmental factors. So doing that, indirectly our system will get deactivated, or it will stop working, and then they will take an action to either enter or damage, or take make some of the risks in the place. So these are different ways of threats actions happens when we have a risk in the system. So what is the jargon we have to use then? So we have to protect what we have. So we cannot look at something we don't have. At least we should protect our assets and resources. It is at the self level, family level, organization level, service level, application level. So you can protect the whatever you have at any of these levels. So how do we identify what is confidential, what you don't want to lose, compromise, what is irreplaceable, what would cause the most damage, what will have a big impact on your relationship? So put all these questions and categorize your digital assets or the services. Any of these assets or resources, you try to use this concept and try to categorize and start having a strategy to protect that. So some of these are our security assets. Just to go from the next previous slide: photos, credit card details, bank details, personal identifiable information, social media platform identification, email, secret files, password information, financial. All these are very important and very they are very close to our heart, both from the both from the importance and also from the other family credentials. So we do not want to afford to lose any of this. So we have to identify these are the security oriented assets. So this is just an information to understand what is a risk. So if we know the vulnerabilities, if we know the threats, then definitely we will be able to identify what is the risk we have for those assets. So how do you calculate the risk? So you should know the vulnerabilities, and you should know the threats, and maybe you can understand that using a modeling, threat modeling, variable vulnerability modeling, or vulnerability assessment, threat assessments, you do it. But once you know that, you will be in a position to do the risk assessment. So how do these processes are? Assets are to be protected by security controls, and security controls are resistant to threats from adversaries. Adversaries are nothing but the outsiders or insiders who are who are creating harmful to our digital assets. So we have to make sure that whatever the security controls we are identifying, they are trying to save the threats, okay, from the adversaries. So security controls are based on threats and advisory. So what type of threats we have, what type of threat actors we are, in the sense whether he is from an organization trying to attack us, or he is an individual attacking us. So all type of advisories we should know, and we should know the threats. Once we know this information, it's very easy to find out the risk exposure. So how do you calculate the risk exposure? It is nothing but vulnerabilities, threats, and the impact, consequences. Okay, so this is generally done at the organization level. In fact, during your security assessment, we try to identify all the risk. We measure the risk, giving certain some kind of process, and some kind of measurements to all the risk, and we try to identify whether we are highly exposed to risk, or we are minimizing all the risk. And this process is very continuously happening almost on monthly basis in most of the organization. risk assessment happens, risk evaluation happens, and the risk audit also happens regularly. And they will look into the current status of the vulnerabilities, current status of the threats, and what is the impact because of this threat and having low vulnerabilities. Now, based on these, you can always develop various security controls depending on the investment you want to do, depending on the priority you have for the digital assets, to make sure that your business doesn't stop. Finally, your business has to grow, your business has to continue. So whatever security controls, it should be a cost-effective security control, and it should be manageable, sustainable. And that has the ability to mitigate also, because those security controls should be used to minimize the risk. So they should mitigate the perceived threat and the adversaries. So it is not a process. So security control is not a process. It is an action. Sorry, it is a process. It is not a one-time activity. It is a regular process. And it is also an action. And it is also using technology. So security has to be a combination of all these. You use various technology tools and techniques. Recent trends in security is giving us many opportunities to implement technology oriented controls, and it is also an action. Fine, you have to implement it and see the result, and it is also a process. It is not a one time activity. So there are various management solutions available today. So you can always have, once you define that you want to have a security importance and risk management as a solution, you can always go back and then check where all you want to establish the security. So maybe an organization which is highly infrastructure oriented can more give prominence to infrastructure security. Some of them are highly data oriented or the application oriented organization. They may provide, consider the priority for the data and application security. They may not invest more on the infrastructure. They may go to a cloud based approach where they buy all the infrastructure services from the cloud, and they may have a priority to provide data and application security. Or there may be a lot of intelligence and analytics available today. They will also provide you as an external agency, as an sponsorer from outside, or a discussion forums like that. They will also work on various risk management solution. You can always buy those type of services from them and implement a security structure in the organization. And you can also have, you want to do into either go for a vulnerability management internally and threat management internally, because they are also various ways of minimizing your threat. And they're all part of the security and risk management solutions in the organization. Either you can do it internally or you can always do from the outside. And this is also another important solution criteria: identity and access management, wherein users will have certain privileges to access. They have access control. Once they have access control, they have various levels of privileges to do the actions. They may have, they can only create, they can only add, they can only modify, they can only do some changes. So like that, role-based access control, role-based privileges, and users identification using various roles. So you have different strategies to manage the users profiles in the organization, who have the important activities and also who are regular users of the employees of the organization. There are certain users, they may not be employees, they come from outside, like vendors, like suppliers, but they also want to access the resources in the organization. So they also have to be provide identity and access. So you have to understand, how do we manage such type of users who are there in the organizations, who come from outside. So these are all part of the risk management solution. So risk management is not just identifying the asset and then you will immediately implement a tool to minimize the risk. So these are all part of identifying the various strategies to minimize the risk. And then finally you have the operational strategy, what operations you want to do, what programs you want to you want to protect, whether you want to protect all the networks in your organization, or some of the networks are loosely connected, but still you do not have to worry at the high priority. So these kind of strategy organization has to do, and accordingly they segregate the network, segregate the system. They may have two data centers. They may have one data center which is very critical for various operations, and another data center for only some of the projects which are very low cost projects. They are ready to take some risk in those. So the risk exposure may be very high in those small applications or small data centers. So you have to identify various ways of managing the risk and security based on the budget, based on the cost. Business has to agree. Business has to approve the investment for these value added services, but at the same time they are not revenue generating services. Security will not gain any profit. It will not provide you any revenue. So management is always concerned about how much to invest, how much to implement when it comes to security. But however, you can take a call as an organization, how, what all you want to implement, at what level, like whether to infrastructure, data, like that you can always go and then implement the risk. There are various security tools available. Please log in into various website. You will get, even Government of India has certain initiative under the Ministry of Electronics Information. So they also have certain details providing to you to create a secure cyberspace by detecting lot of botnet infections in India, and to notify, enable cleaning, securing. So if you are using, you can always adapt such type of best practices, and also make sure that your systems at the home or at the organization is complying to the security. So this is just some statistics I'm getting. So what it says is that you don't have to worry about all information to be protected. You protect the most. That is what it says. So this data says is that according to some security company, 944 data breaches led to 3.3 billion data records being compromised in the worldwide in the first half of 2018, which is almost 72% increase. What does it mean? That means we have to have more data security. So you try to protect, if that is a very important asset in the organization, you try to protect that. So the data security becomes a prominent role for that organization. So over 18 million records exposed every day. I mean, what their analysis says is that many data records today, because of technology, because of network, internet working, so they are getting exposed in the network and exposed to outsiders. So that is the avenue for many hackers to enter into your organization to steal the data. And it is happening almost 214 records every second, including credit card, financial data, such type of. So what this says is that we have to protect the very important asset, digital asset, and try to establish the security. Okay. So we use the threat intelligence, which I already talked about. We use various levels of analysis to gather the information about the threat. We analyze it, and then we try to understand at what level we can implement our security framework. So threat intelligence itself is an area where you try to understand the complete landscape of threat and use those information to establish the security controls. So as we said, again, for threat intelligence, the sources are same, which I talked about threat. You can have external sources, you can have internal sources. So blogs, news reports, public block lists, or organizational security information, event management, firewalls, logs, all that they provide you same information even for your threat intelligence. So then comes your risk management. So this risk management, again, I said it is not a revenue generating operation in the organization, but however, it has a prominent role. It forms the core component of the organization. So there will be a team which is managing this, or the risks have to be managed even at the individual level. Individual level may not have a team to manage, but it is an important activity either for organization or an individual. For my mobile, I have to definitely identify the risk and take care of that. Otherwise, my mobile will be always under threat. So it is a regular activity. It is not a one-time activity. So again, you go to this website and look for more details on that. So what is the framework for risk management? So the concept is same how we have done for vulnerability assessment or vulnerability management. You try to expand the same kind of processes here also. You categorize the information system or digital assets. First, try to identify what is the prominent information system or the devices or the processes which are relevant to the business, which are highly impacting the business. So determine the criticality and sensitivity of those systems or the devices. So you can categorize all the components, critical elements in your organization, and find out the criticality and sensitivity, whether you are ready to compromise those elements. If it is not, then it has to be a part of the information system. You want to protect it. Then you can directly follow these standards like ISO 27000 or COBIT. There are various frameworks at the federal level or at the state level in across the countries available. So you can always depend on that. You can implement. For health related, there is a separate health related standard. There is a pharmaceutical, there is a separate standard. So you can always adapt such standards and use those policy definitions, use those guidelines and standards to implement the security policy in the organization. Once you have that, it is an assessing. You have to continuously assess those security controls. When I say security controls, you have to monitor regularly. Otherwise, any day that security control may become very weak and it can become vulnerable to even access from outside. Today, there are, even though we implement antivirus software, there is no guarantee because every day more and more viruses are getting intruded into the system. So our antivirus software we installed 2 years back will not work anymore. Fine. So same way you have to assess every day. And every maybe once in a week or maybe once in a month, depending on the type of organization, sensitive data you have, you have to assess these security controls and ensure that all the informations are in safe position or they are in the they are outside the risk in the organization. So whether they are implemented correctly. Second one, even though you have implemented correctly, they are minimizing the risk exposure or not. Both you have to ensure. So assessment is very important. Once you do the assessment, you are also doing the authorization because all these assets, all these entities like laptops, databases, systems, devices, they have to have the human interactions. Fine, because people are going and managing, people are going and logging in and cleaning that, people are logging in and using those. So you need only the authorized personnel to use this system. So this is equally important. So that also becomes part of your risk management definition framework. Based on the risk, you grant permissions. You do not give permissions to all of them. Then you monitor regularly. So if I want to write in very small framework, this is if you can do regularly on your system or in the organization, you may be able to establish the risk management strategies very safely. So what do we do in risk assessment? We either do quantitative or qualitative. In quantitative means you are trying to assign some value. You are trying to assign some cost. you're trying to identify in terms of cost the damage is going to happen. So quantitative analysis itself is a big area. So you assign the value to all your assets and threats and measure, and then you see what is the maximum exposure I have. Based on that, you can always say how much you want to protect, how much you don't want to protect. So it is more of a cost based analysis. Whereas qualitative is you do not go into the cost factor, but you are doing subjectively, you are going by evidences or going by scenarios, going by event based or process based, and then you try to identify how the processes are actually impacting the weakness in those processes are impacting the exposures, risk exposures. So then you, from those scenarios, you can always define how much threat it is causing, how much data loss is happening, how much security you are compromising. So the analysis can happen always qualitatively. So we have different type of tools and methods to manage qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis. Sometimes it can be a combination of this, so it can be a hybrid assessment policy. So what are the countermeasures we have to have? These are nothing but your security controls. So I would say administrative level, you can have policies, you can have standards, you can have procedures, rules, regulations. So these are all administrative security controls, okay, or countermeasures, I would say. And when it comes to technical, most of us, we use softwares based controls. So you can always implement these tools or the technique or the softwares or the platforms or the OS, different type of OS which will provide you a lot of security in built-in features. So you can, from the technical front, you can use a lot of softwares. From physical, we know locks we use security guards, we use firewalls, CCTVs. So you can have a combination of all these measures, administrative measures, technical measures, or physical measures to manage the risk which are coming out from the threats. So various roles you have to define. As I said, risk management does not give public access to all the all the environment which are prone to the security challenges. So you have various roles like senior management, security professional, data owner, custodian of data, users, employees. I mean, this list is not limited or to only these 5 roles. You can have more than 100, 200 roles depending on the size of the organization. And they will have certain permissions granted to access certain location, access certain documents, access certain important confidential data. So based on that, you can always try to assess what is the level of risk you are exposing or you are trying to mitigate it. So the roles are very important and responsibilities are very important. So as I said, there are various strategies. So how do you generally manage those strategies? You can have always some measures. You can try to quantify, again qualify those measures. So one sample is that you can have administrative risk management strategy. What does it mean? That means you have either physical security, so you know that most of the locations are physically secured. No person who is not related to that organization is entering into those premises. So you can have a physical security, which is nothing but an administrative measure. Or you can have training, awareness to all the employees so they know how to use what type of data. So in our organization, we never had any Gmail user email ID to send any information to our customers. So we have to use only the organization user IDs. So like that, some of the security policies are shared to the employees through training. So you can have that kind of measures. Networking, you have various levels of networking locks, network communication protocols, or the network layers of security you can always establish. So there is this itself is a huge opportunity for network professionals who want to get into security area. So you can always measure various protocols, HTTPS, SSH, VPN, no, like that, there are different ways of implementing the measures which can ensure your security layer. System administration, the OS level, you have to be implementing possible. So you identify what type of interfaces you can establish for system level. Specialized security, there are certain outside extraordinary features which are provided by various vendors. So you can also have. So like that, you have various ways in which you can mitigate the risk and define the strategies. So there are certain examples given here. Please go through it. If you are having an advanced persistent threat, how do we define? How do we mitigate? So there are certain best practices given by Gartner. You can go and check. There is some cyber intrusions, how to mitigate. Some strategies are given by Australian some companies. You can go there. This is again one more some group which is providing some of the alerts. You can always look at that. So this I am not able to show this, but I am telling you, I cannot I cannot increase this. Now there are these are various mitigation strategies which are adopted, and they are adopted, and they are also given status against all these various components they are identified in the risk mitigation strategy. So they will say that user application configuration hardening, automated dynamic analysis. So they identify each mitigation strategy and also the ranking they give as per the effectiveness of that strategy. So there are different organization uses different approaches. This is one organization wherein they have created a strategy document. They are giving the ranking status for the effectiveness of that, and they will also monitor regularly. Okay, some of them are in excellent, some of them are low, some of them are high. So when it comes to high, then they can always go back and check why it has become low and how to improve those low factors there. So whether that is a security prone incidents, so how do we minimize? So they can identify such type of approaches to manage the risk mitigation. So this is again very important when it comes to asset. We not only just identify the asset, categorize, we also have to do the management. So there are various ways of doing the digital asset management. We generally do tools based asset management using configuration management or inventory management. There are tools available, so I will not go into detail of this slide. So you can always use those softwares to manage the different assets. How do we configure? How do we maintain the configuration of those digital assets which are there? Version management, how do we maintain? How do we take a backup of those assets? How do we retrieve those backups when it is important? How do we replace those when it becomes outdated? So all that will come under your asset management strategies. So there are certain controls which I think I told you in the last session. I will not go into that. Again, these are various softwares you can use which are directly providing you these type of services. So based on the type of investment you have, based on the type of risk strategy you have, you can always select the controls, security controls standard also. So you can always go for malware defense, you can go for application software security, or you want to go for only wireless access control, data recovery capability. So look into what is more critical to the organization, because it's very difficult to implement all the security controls for all type of activities. So we have to, as an organization, give priority, give importance what is more critical. Accordingly, you have to invest, because security is an investment. It doesn't come as a free. So you can select the standards, and also you can select the controls accordingly based on the type of importance you give as an organization. So these are different ways of selecting the security controls. So now I come into very important aspect. One should not give less importance. Zero trust architecture model to understand the threats. Very important for the threat modeling. Why we call it as zero trust? You cannot assume as an organization, as an individual, trust factor on anyone who is outside your premises. So the traditional model used to say all the employees in the organizations are trusted employees. They will never create a security related challenges. But today we say that it is zero trust. Everyone you consider as a potential intruder into the organizational asset. So you have a zero trust. And that kind of threat modeling is called as zero trust threat model. So use access management, identity management, access control, or privileges management to create the accesses for users, rather than simply going and trusting the individuals or the employees of the organization. So this in zero trust architecture, it views data security through a new lens. So it doesn't accept or doesn't take granted that all employees are trusted employees in the organization. So it always look that no, there can be a possibility an insider and in internal employee can always create a havoc and he can hack the system. So zero architecture model always looks from a different perspective. So it always creates the access and restrictions for all the employees inside the organization. Of course, this is eminently scalable. You can this model concepts can be always scalable into the bigger organization, and viable security solutions are always possible through this. It is nothing but an augmentation of current security control. So if you have a security control policy established for only outsiders, now you have to look it into all the inside employees also and should be given some viable security control solutions so that they will not come into those challenges scenarios. Okay. So virtual segmentation gateway into the virtualization stack of the public cloud service, then applying layer of 2.0. This is just one sample how you can establish a zero trust architecture model. So why we say that zero trust model is very important? If you see here, the 14% of incidents which are happening today, they are all from the insiders. 23% of they are creating malicious insiders. They are creating the access abuse within the organization. 62% are doing the phishing mechanism to create a security challenges inside the organization. So these insiders are capable of creating lot of security related challenges to the organization, threat to the organization. So that is why zero trust model is very important today. Why? Because the impact is costly. We cannot now consider an organization to have a loss on the revenue. So we have to consider even insider as very important entity for the security threats. So we are using the zero trust model to implement the security solutions for even employees within the organization. So you can go through this particular website and you see that lot of details are provided why the impact from the insider is very expensive and we cannot neglect it. So these are certain questions you have to answer, ask about insider organization, insider are the employees, why you have to address the insiders to manage the security threats. So these are certain questions as we are answering in our policies and documents to manage the insider threat. So what are the strategies? Again, I will not go into detail. So you have to build the strategy for insider threats also. That is very important. This is very important. Who are the, what are the most valuable information assets? Where are they? How they are accessing? How they are being accessed? What type of controls? So you have to build the strategy for even inside employees. And you have to continuously assess the current practices. You have to take the go all the security assessment possible on regular basis and assess the existing policies, so that we ensure the basic security practices are there in the place. We don't want to compromise any assessments, because we need to ensure that all the threat and vulnerability management program are very effective and the security program assessments are happening regularly. So it is very important that we have to do on a continuous basis. Once you have, then you can develop a threat profile for all the insiders. So you consider the life cycle of an employee from the day of joining to an exit, and then you determine at what level they become a risk to the organization. So most of the employees become risk when they put up their papers, when they resign. By the time they resign and finally they go out of the organization, they are always considered as a very highly risk in the organization. And you have to manage that time the rules, access rules, privilege rules, permissions rules for all the activities they do from the day one to the day they resign and go out of the organization. So you have to enforce certain duties and privileges for such type of employees also. This is what we do as part of the zero trust model. So separation of duties, separation of privilege, various privileges for granting permissions and things like that, we have to do it. And monitor their user behavior. Some days they become very, smartly they may get and start accessing confidential data and leak out. So we have to be very careful in spite of all these privileges, access we are given. And this happens continuously. There is no doubt about it. It is happening very prominently in most of the organization. And why it happens, how it happens, using certain tools which are automatically installed in the organization, it will try to find out those alerts and provide you instant informations. So that is all actually the, so far we have talked about 5 steps for risk management strategy. And when it comes to the higher level for external users, then you can always follow these standards, National Institute of Standard and Technology or COBIT or ISO type of standards. They provide the various frameworks, they provide standards, methodologies, procedures and processes, and using those you can always develop a security framework for the organization. So with that, I think we can come to close of this sessions. You have any questions and all, please pass it on. Then we can always address it later at a point of time. So I will now, what I have covered for in this session is how we can manage the risk using risk management strategy, and some of the security controls also I told you. And as we go in the next day tomorrow, we will again talk about more security controls through organizational standards, how we can manage. So there are different standards available. So I will definitely take one standard tomorrow and try to explain to you in detail. So these provide actually very cost effective approach for the organization. And they're all performance based, and they are repeatable, they are flexible, they are scalable approaches for for a bigger organization where cost is very important, investment is very important, and it's a management decision taken at the organization. Any questions you have?
Ma'am, it was a good session. There are a few questions that is asked in chat window. We can have this, we can answer for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that will be of great help to them.
Yeah. I'll just go and then check the, how do I check the
I hope you are able to see the chat window. Hello. Hello, ma'am. Uma will be answering a few of the questions that is posted in chat window. We'll just wait for her to come back.
Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, ma'am. We are able to hear your voice.
Okay. Okay. So you shall I take the questions now?
Yes, ma'am. I think there are questions in the chat window.
Okay. Shall I go? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. You can read the
Abhijit?
question and also answer it.
Okay, I plan CSI exam, Naresh Kumar. As per instruction, it is not a revenue generation job. How do I, no, I never said that this security is a professional, this is a, not a revenue generation job. No, I think there is a confusion if you have that. In the beginning itself, I put the second slide, the security, cyber security, or the professionals who are interested in security. This is a big opportunity for you to get into this profession. So certification is only to get the skill, but what is not a revenue generation? Revenue generation is for the organization. These activities are not given no the cost when it comes to the project as a project. These are all the investment an organization has to do. No customer is ready to pay money for the specifically money for the security control establishment. What happens is that he expects these security controls to be built in the organization before giving even the project. So in that perspective, I said that you cannot go and sell to any customer as a service, that as an organization, this is what I am doing, so you have to give me 10% extra cost to this project. So he cannot use this. In fact, it is a feature they expect from the organizations. So I would definitely say that please continue that. You have to get into security. It is becoming a very important profession in the no, like any other IT type of job. So what is the best field in cyber security? Anything you can get into. I wouldn't say this is not bad, this is not correct, this is not a good field. Cyber security itself is a huge area. So there are different ways of getting into this. You can become an analyst, cyber analyst. You can become information analyst. You can become a ethical hackers in the organization to do vulnerability assessment. You can become a penetration tester in the organization to help them do it. Or you can become a risk manager, risk analyst. You can do various type of analysis, quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis. There are so many ways you can add value to the organization, and it's very difficult to get such type of expertise today in the industry. It's easy to get programmers, but it's very difficult to get a risk manager or security professional in the organization, and that too who have the interest to pursue their career. And if you have a certification, yes, it's very good to join any company and grow within the company in the security area. So most of the big organizations are having, many network companies are having today scope for these type of roles and responsibilities. Security engineer, again, security engineer also, if you are really looking into data center and you want to grow in the network and electronic side from the electronics background, yes, you can always continue to work as a network engineer or data center engineer or the security engineer for the data centers, looking into various aspects. So there is no one area I can say, because today organizations are having different approaches to manage the security. No, yes, all the security measures, whatever I'm saying, it is applicable to hardware, physical security. See, cyber security, cyber physical security, there is a big difference. Cyber, what I'm talking is the network. When you are combining two systems, one system is sitting in your home, another system you are accessing on the network. Now there is a network. Fine, it is connecting between your system to another system in the outside world. if you are working on a cloud-based system. So how does the data go from your system to cloud? Through the network. So whatever measures you are taking to manage your data transfer from one system to another system on the network, so those are all becoming the prominent when it comes to the cyber security. When it comes to physical security, it is the data center. In data center you have servers, you have switches, you have various components, devices using your those devices, components, servers have to be protected. So you have a security guard managing that, you have CCTV camera managing that, or you have some kind of access control to manage all the those systems away from that, fire extinguisher to manage that physical components from the fire, or to protect from the cyclones. So you may have something, natural disasters may happen, so you want to protect. These are all physical security systems. So how you manage from the environment, how you manage from the thieves who are outsiders who can come and steal those servers. They can even take away your systems from the data centers. So they all become part of your data security, physical security. I hope I got it. So information, so there is a small difference between cyber security. As I said, cyber security, network security is more or less same. Information security is different, data security is different. Information is more related to the assets, digital assets, information, what you are using for your various activities. No, cyber security, you are a good student, then you can get into any platform of cyber security. You can become a ethical, learning ethical hacking practices, or you can learn some of the tools and techniques, or you can specialize on one type of analyzing one type of hacking, one maybe malware, maybe spyware, or DDoS, that is denial of service. You can focus on one type of analysis of one type of security threat, or you can become a understanding the overall network security, or the cyber security, or the physical security. I mean, there are different areas in which you can become a security specialist. Now, how to opt cyber security as a career? First and foremost is you should have an interest. Then you will be able to learn skills step by step. To begin with, whether you are interested to do as an freelancing, or in your own startup, or an individual from your side as a consultant to the organization, then you have to develop as much of possible skills outside and get those many certificates. This is as an individual. Now, the second one is you can always join an organization and join some team. There are organizations which has information security team. Or it is called different names, but I'm just giving one example. So teams which are managing networks, teams which are managing the complete information across the organization. So there are teams. So you are joining that team. You are joining that department. I would say department. Then in that department, you will go as to begin with fresher, or an engineer who join as a trainee into those organization. Then you will become an analyst. Then you will become a manager. Then you will become a team lead, or you will become a program lead, or you will become a functional head. So there are different roles you can acquire as you join those teams in those organizations. Or you can join any teaching organization as a faculty. So you do some further studies, MTech, or maybe some specialized programs in cyber security, or security, any type of security, information security, cyber security, network security. You can specialize, and then you can always join as a faculty. You can start giving your own training program using today various platforms. the Edureka, or no, many of those websites are today encouraging people to provide the training. You can always join as a trainer and become an independent trainer to many of the such .com companies. So you can always join a government also. There are very mission critical applications happen in the defense or even many government offices. So you can join as a security analyst to even government offices. Correct. Yeah. Social engineering, in fact, it's very important. It's like a counseling. I mean, somebody is asking social engineer. So it is not a social engineer, social security engineer. So you start now understanding what are the different ways of attacking a human being using the social media. Fine. So today we are all there in social media like Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, Telegram, Pinterest. Now you understand what are the new senses as a social security engineer. Many people are facing today, and how those can be minimized using different approaches, different tools. You can develop a tool as a programmer to social media security control. So why not do that? If you are a very good programmer, you can even develop a mobile app to minimize such type of risk on social media. Fine. And you can sell those mobile apps to the social media organizations like Facebook or Twitter or anybody. They may buy your mobile app. So you can think in a different way. Okay, how to join an intern in some company? So intern, I think I'm not the right person to answer this question, because interns, you have to ask your own organization. There are different procedures to follow for selecting the interns. I'm a so which so if you are a cyber security analyst, again there are different branches you can take. Whether you want to join as an analyst, where you will have to do quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, and you will also understand different risk management tools. So you can get specified certificates, or you can join as a tester like penetrating tester, or you can some of the testing activities you can do using this certification. So you can definitely become a penetration tester certified professional, or you can join the risk management group and try to work on the process development, risk management policies, risk management processes. So you are having interest in the security, but you are also be an engineer who can join as a risk management analyst, risk management professional. So you can, or you can become a security auditor. So you can join as an audit. So there are auditing certifications you can complete and you can join. Now, hacking is a very generic term. Attacking process to the system and organization is a very different. Both are actually interrelated. Hacking is generally like a thief coming to your house and opening the door and entering into your house without any permission. So that is what we call it as hacking. But here hacking is not happening at the house level. Hacking is happening at the individual level, system level, unknowingly. You don't even know that somebody has entered into your device. Somebody has entered into your system. So that is a hacking. Now, process is very different. Attacking a process means now suddenly you go and open your operating system. It doesn't work. What does it mean? Somebody has already deleted your operating system and deactivated your device, and you cannot even open your system. So that is attacking a process. No. See, I think hacking is different. System tracking is different. System tracking is a process of managing activities that need not to be a hacking. It is any regular activity you do in this in your day-to-day activities in the system, in the organization. So system tracking is a sub activity of a process defined in the organization. Now that tracking can be an ethical hacking process also. It can be one process of a ethical hacking process also. So ethical hacking is also a vulnerability assessment procedure some organization can adopt. So in that, system tracking is one sub activity. So system tracking is not a hacking process. It is a monitoring process. Yeah, there are so many research challenging problems in cyber security. So every day new viruses are entering into our system because we are using technology very differently. Most of our activities are happening now work from home. So this concept was not there earlier. So you can always find out research problem in how to ensure security when we are working from home. There are systems which are now connected on the internet, and then we are connecting to the organization. So there are many of the public space we have to travel when we want to go to the organization on the network, on the internet. So lot of research problems you can think of. There are how do you protect when your systems when you're working from home? What type of tools you can use? What type of protocols you can use? Which are trying to provide the maximum risk mitigation when it comes to working outside the organization. See, you have to do some search to find out social security engineer. You can always start from yourself. There is nothing like there is a organization which is teaching you or which is providing you certificate. Any certificate which you are learning for security related skill will be useful for even security mastering the social security engineer. What is important is you have to practice. You have to use so many tools available and try to learn those skills. How to do the penetration testing, how to do vulnerability assessment, how to do risk management. These are various activities you may have to practice using these tools. There are many tools available freely downloadable from the network, which are legally approved tools, the open system. You have to use those tools and manage. Like in the afternoon, you are going to use Metasploit. That is for penetrating testing. So if you become an expert in that, you can use always that tool itself to do a lot of social engineering security challenges you can manage. So I would say try to more focus on penetration testing because you are going to get some exposure on that in our sessions. So you try to expertise that. Then from there as a basis, you can always develop various other skills. Yeah, intrusion and detection can be automated. Yes, there are tools, SIEM tool, which I said to a larger extent, these are all automated. And in fact, many organizations have incident management tool. They're all automated tools which are available today. No, see, even if the processes are automated, somebody has to do deep analysis into these, and accordingly, they have to develop the strategy. Fine, because these tools, whatever information they provide, that has to be analyzed, that has to be evaluated for managing the strategy, and those strategy have to be aligned to the business goals. So our automated tools are not so smart to analyze and provide the decision making process. So the automation will not remove any job opportunities. Like today we are going to have robots, we are going to have machine learning, we are going to have artificial intelligence. But these are all new ways of doing our things. They are not going to remove our job opportunities. In fact, they will also create equal opportunities to get into various different type of jobs which were not existing earlier. So finally, I would summarize that anything you learn as a new skill, you can utilize those skills and you can always upgrade your skills at latest point of time. And once you join any company, you can always look into the company objectives, their job profiles, and you can always upgrade your skill. It is not that you join with just one certificate and you retire from that organization with that one certificate. You always have to extend based on the requirements. We never had artificial intelligence, machine learning 10 years back, 15 years back. But today, most of the opportunities are coming in data science and they are coming in artificial intelligence. Same is the case for security. 10 years down the line, you will have more security jobs related to artificial intelligence, big data analytics, machine learning, which we never thought in earlier, 10 years back. So you will always have more and more new type of job opportunities. No, which kind of risk assessment is effective? Asset-based risk assessment process. It depends on the company, how they look at it. Every organization has to identify all their assets. They have to categorize all their assets. Once they categorize, then they have to apply how they want to protect those assets for the best. For the best safe of their company. Fine. So they have to follow very much for their processes for those asset management. So asset management is not just activity; it is also a process. So you have to have even process linked to all this asset management. Okay, I think I'm very happy to. I thought I have clarified many of the doubts. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity for today's to do all that. So let us meet tomorrow.